Today I'm going to challenge myself and attempt to make an adorable alien creature using these photos of microscopic marine life. To start, I already removed the background from all the assets I'm using, which are microscopy images of tiny marine life from podonidae to water fleas to appendages from a couple of barnacles. Don't use the remove background tool for this if you're using Adobe products because it'll create a mask that makes it impossible for you to do anything beyond the edges of each form. Instead, I'll use the image select tool and then select the inverse and delete the background, or use the color range tool to select the background and delete it. So after that, I use the hue saturation tool to adjust their tone so that they share similar coloring. What I'm going to do next is layer the podonidae with a water flea to create a shape and texture that I like better than what I'm starting with here. So I'll use the clone tool, and I've taken the opacity down for the podonidae layer so that I can see both at the same time. Then I'll turn that layer off after grabbing the actual image with the clone tool. And I'll begin making the alterations to this water flea after adjusting the size and position so that it sits where I want it to sit. Then I'm going to select an area using the clone tool, and I'll go into the water flea layer that I want to change and use the clone tool to begin making those changes. And I'm going to select again from inside the image changes so that I can create the texture I'm looking for. I'm using low levels of hardness so that I don't have hard lines, since what I'm looking for is a soft blend. And I'm going to erase these appendages from the original water flea using a hard edge so that this outline remains sharp. Next, I want to adjust the shape a little bit, so I'm going to go in and rotate the image, and then I'm basically going to take some of the width away. And I will hold down the control key so that I can suspend the lock on the aspect ratio and allow me to skew the image just a little bit. And the next, what I'm going to do is add a sort of eye, and I'll use a different image of a different water flea, I believe a different subspecies as well. So here's what that water flea looks like. I'm not sure that this is actually an eye, but I'm going to use it as an eye. And I'm pretty happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to do is use an isopod to change the bottom of the shape. And then I'll use the same process that I already applied to change the texture. So again, I'll adjust the size and position of the image I'm adding before I use the clone tool. I may not be able to make it invisible. I may need it for a reference point. So we'll see. So again, I'm going to go back in and use the Podonidae texture to fill in the isopod addition to the original water flea. And I'll rotate it to get the placement that I want as far as the texture goes. I like the outer glow that I'm getting from this point in the texture, so I want to grab that again, but I need it facing in the right direction. So I'm just going to pull texture from an area that gives me the right intensity and light and add it down here. And I'm going to add these appendages from yet another water flea image. I think this is also a different species. And I am giving myself the challenge of making this cute, so I may not be able to keep these. I think these are kind of cute, but they may sort of take away from the cuteness I'm looking for. And then I'm going to add these barnacle tentacles that I've already cut out using the pen tool. It still doesn't look very cute, but I am going to add these to the head, and maybe that will give it a little extra fluffiness, make it a little cuter. No, that's not working. That's definitely not cute. All right, so what I'm probably going to do is use symmetry to make this cuter because it actually helps our brains identify something as more familiar and therefore easier to see as cute. Human brains like symmetry a lot, so if you're ever having trouble making something cute or beautiful, try adding symmetry, especially bilateral symmetry, and you might find you have an easier time of it. Just not perfect symmetry if you want to make something look like a living creature. If you're making something artificial, it can have perfect symmetry, but otherwise you want the symmetry to be imperfect. So I'm going to cut this shape in half and then double the half that I preserved and reverse it so that I can make something with bilateral symmetry. And then I'll go through with all the other pieces and continue to create bilateral symmetry. So I'll flip this so that it is in the same position as the other side. Go ahead and rotate it. Again, you don't want it to be perfectly symmetrical. That will not look real. And I do think I have to get rid of these cute little skeletal hands. I don't think there's any way to make those look cute. I like them, but I'm looking for something that will appeal to children. I think that's the definition of whether or not something's actually cute. Will little children find it cute? Because adults, we have all kinds of hangups that get in the way of our discernment over how cute and benign something actually is. So right now, this is looking a bit like a fish. I'll show you what I mean. See, it looks a bit like it already looks like marine life, and that's where I started from. So I want it to look like a land animal. I'm shooting for something like a bipedal version of a horse. So just two legs instead of four. But of course, glowing alien. So I'm going to try making the mane a little fluffier and see if we get more of a horse-like creature, something kind of cute. Also kind of get away from this sort of Karen hairstyle. There we go. That's definitely better. All right, now it doesn't really look like a fish, and I think once I stand it upright, it should have more of an equine sort of vibe. a glowing bioluminescent land mammal-ish. I may have to shrink it just a little bit to get it to fit. And so there we have it. It's a cute little alien bipedal glowing creature made from what could be considered conventionally unattractive marine life.